Okay, so tell me how you're doing. Besides getting a new
Oh,
puppy and dealing with lack of sleep and all that stuff, how are you
yeah.
doing in your recovery of your other pet? You feel like you're I love that you bought that headstone, that stone. It's so perfect. Do you feel like you had a chance to grieve with your kids and really
Yeah, I mean, and I obviously still, I miss her to death
I
because,
know.
it was just life was easy with,
Yeah.
the two dogs I had. I was like, yeah, it was easy. She was, it certainly wasn't easy when we first got her, but
No.
like, and I was just like, oh my gosh, now I have like so much work and to get this puppy like to that level that she was at, but
Yeah, you got a year or two, you can do it.
yeah.
And there's still so much puppy stuff that you end up missing after a while,
Well, and we never got to experience that with Sydney. We adopted her when she was 10 months old. She was like returned to the breeder.
Yeah. That's right. You were telling me that.
Breeder return. So we didn't ever get to do it, see her as a puppy. Like 10 months, they're pretty much, fully grown.
Yeah, and they're usually potty trained, and so.
Yeah, she wasn't, but because she was just left outside.
Oh,
but
that's right.
But she caught on so quick because she was, she could hold it much longer.
Yeah.
And so she was smarter. She caught on much quicker than an 8-week-old. Like this morning, sometimes when you're so exhausted, it's hard. I try to be patient and I try not to get, upset or anything. And I don't yell at him or anything. I would never do anything like that. But I had him outside for, I can't even tell you the longest time. And I just kept like taking him out there. And he wouldn't pee. Like, he just thinks it's like playtime. And he's just running all over the place. And then not 2 minutes after I get back inside, he pees on the floor. I'm like,
what the heck?
Come on.
Well, do you, something that has worked for me is a can, an old soda can, and you put rocks in it. And it's really, it's shocking and it's loud and they don't like it. And you can, I use the can with potato. It's the best thing ever.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And he knows it's like, I've got him to the point where if we're out in the front yard and we're in a community, so you have to wear a leash. The dog has to be on leash, but I want my dog to be a dog. So I let him off leash all the time. It's so bad. But I use the can he knows it means you need to be right next to my side. Like, yeah, there's something going on, and he tails under, and he comes to me like, I don't know.
Well, that's a good idea. I will.
Yeah, that might help. And so we leave LaCroix cans of rocks around the house. So, if he whines at the dinner table, we shake the can, and he's like, okay, fine. I'll just sit here and watch you guys eat.
Yeah.
But he won't. It's just easy because it's like a shock collar without the shock. It's just, It's like a loud noise. It's like a bark,
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, something to think about. And that's easy to have. You don't have to go buy anything except for a can.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea because they definitely, the noises,
it doesn't,
when they're really young puppies, they're like, oh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and you'll know they don't like it, so. How are you doing with your food, your body image? Where are you at?
Well, I mean, pretty good. Like, we went to Disneyland, and I was up with my friend, and they had so much crap there. Oh my gosh, it was just, like, of course, they ate way too much, and
oh, yeah. Well, and then there's, they have those the scents that they push out there. I mean, they got spray scent of popcorn and caramel and cotton candy, and they spray. I mean, all of the senses are being stimulated.
It was, and then they just had so much stuff, and I was like, I just kept having, reflux. Like, I was like, just heartburn and all these issues, and I'm like, okay, this is just insane. Like,
yeah, you might want to listen.
Yeah, it's like, so I still have the problem of, like, I want all this food, you know.
Yeah, well, why were you?
Like,
what were you feeding? Because you're
I
not.
don't know. I don't know. Like, that's like,
Okay, just open your goddamn mind. Why did you go to Disneyland?
well, to see my friend.
Okay, so
You know.
were you on vacation? Were you using it to, you know, feel better about the loss of your dog? You know, you have to really look at why you would want to do that. You know, there's nothing. It's the specialness of Disneyland. Like, what is it? Because you certainly didn't necessarily have the physical drive to do that. So, what was the drive?
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe like, oh, I'm at Disneyland, so I can have this and this. And
Yeah, it sounds like a dieter to me. So some of that's like people who don't diet, who don't would it be that magnified?
right.
You know, so we could say, well, of course, it's understandable because you've been living in your thin supremacy, you know, off and on again relationship with restriction, that you go and you might not have, you have to be aware of what's going on. I remember going to Disneyland with my kids, and I mean, it is just ridiculous, right? Like I said, the fantasy foods and the food just out on the streets. It's easy to say I want to do that because that's part of the experience. For someone who feels restricted in their overall life with food, can you see why you would say, I'm here, I want to enjoy it, and you're kind of making that the emphasis or a big part of it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess.
So that really, you just have to learn your lesson and recognize the physical consequence of making that unbound, if you want to say that, because you know if you don't really listen to your body, you're gonna feel like shit, and so it really takes away from the whole experience. If food is the primary thing you are focusing on, can you see why you have to open your mind to look at the entire experience? If food becomes the big thing, you're going to feel sick. And then what does that do to the overall experience?
Right.
It sucks.
Takes away from it, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and haven't we all done that? I mean, I used to, let's just think about how many different environments that people do this, especially dieters. The movie theater. You're there for the popcorn and the candy, and you're watching a movie feeling like total and complete shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've, the salt, the grease, the candy, and you're not really enjoying yourself anymore. Because this is a momentary, exciting experience for you to not feel bad and to be able to experience this. And you've created this connection to the food more so than the actual experience. And again, the reason being the feelings of being deprived. Being deprived. On top of that, I posted in that Patreon account a picture that I took of this book that I'm reading.
Yeah.
Did I send it to you?
Yeah.
I might have sent it to you because of, and what they found, which, I didn't, that was the diabetic part. The actual digestive chapter where they talk about the gastric secretions, the saliva secretions on top of the peristalsis action and stuff that is affected. They studied children who had accidentally drinking something corrosive and their esophagus ends up shutting, right? So they cannot swallow. The food will not go down. So what they have to do is they chew the food, and they were studying the gastric response when there's no food in the stomach. And so what they found through different environments is that these children, when they felt deprived, their stomachs had a very specific, it stopped, all of it stopped. Fight or flight, like stress response. it's actually kind of amazing the different angles they looked at. And this is all done, by the way, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, when all this space, the kind of fundamental science of this was discovered. So they found that chewing the food and tasting the food and the pleasure of food, the stomach released all this, acid and gastric. They call it gastric watering. It started to water, kind of like your mouth waters, right?
Yeah.
The food wasn't even in the stomach. Okay. Then they put the food in the stomach without chewing, and they found there was no gastric release. So the actual saliva and stomach release stems from the central nervous system stimulus from the mouth and the pleasure center of the brain, not the actual gut. So and then if the food that they ate wasn't pleasurable at all, like they didn't like it, less gastric response than the food that was pleasurable. So the actual pleasure center of the brain is really important in digestion. However, when these people, children, or felt deprived, pissed off, I don't get to eat, I don't get to enjoy it, complete stop. Even if they fed it through the intestines or fed it through the port into the stomach. Anyway, so your feelings of being deprived and then eating actually stop the digestive process. Fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Makes me
You wouldn't think that would happen.
Oh, it does, because your brain is telling the gut, telling the saliva in the mouth, if this is good, if this is bad. If you feel in any way deprived, your whole body goes into fight or flight, and the last thing the body's going to do is promote digestion. It goes into the muscles. It goes into preserving fighting, really, when you think about it.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so that's why.
Yeah.
That's why. Your brain doesn't know, oh, she's irrational. She feels deprived, in an abundant roll of food.
Yeah, it's the same, like, oh, she's being chased by something bad.
She's being withheld. Someone is going to hurt her. She's being hurt, So when you think I'm being hurt, especially with your body goes into, well, we're not going to do the things that are luxurious, like digest food. We're actually going to stimulate gluconeogenesis, which is increasing blood sugar, and we're going to stop digesting food. Peristalsis stops too. So there was also a study done where they studied this one woman who they noticed that she was kind of sensitive to stress, which is what made her, a good person to study. That her food wasn't being digested. Like they were studying the food in her stomach, and the food from the day previous was still in her stomach. But then all of a sudden they noticed that she was having better digestion, but it was coordinated with her anxiety and fear. Well, her husband was an alcoholic, and when her husband came to her to New York, where she was being studied, when he was there, her digestion stopped. Food from the previous day was still in her gut the next day. Yeah. When he wasn't there, her digestion, she was already eliminating the food she ate the previous day. Mm-hmm. So this... Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So when you look at people who diet, can you imagine when you're dieting and you're told that food is bad, that food is fattening, that food, just immediately you're now just take a chronic period of time. Obviously, the body can handle non-digested food. You're not going to get the nutrition. It doesn't break down. You're not getting as good absorption of the nutrition from in the intestines because your stomach's not supporting it through, the gastric juices. They studied the bile impact, everything. Stress, anxiety, feeling deprived, fight or flight in any degree shuts it all down. So you can imagine someone who is in stress, in survival mode, even if it's something that has nothing to do with dieting. You might have symptoms of diabetes. You're going to have, and that's another thing they showed with medical students. They studied their blood sugar and their actual urine sugar before an exam and then right after the exam. Okay, before the exam, there was basically one person who had high, glucose in the urine, which is an indication of blood sugar, right? Yeah. after the exam, like 17% of the students had high urine sugar. So the question is, like, how does stress impact digestion? And okay, so back to this whole thing I kind of sidetracked, but how you respond to feeling deprived is directly impacting your digestive process. Okay, so even if you go and you're like, we could say your symptoms are so much less now. Would you agree? Like, before, you would have binged your brains out at Disneyland. This time, you just overate. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't even know if it was at Disneyland or, like, even, when we got back to the house, like, her family's just a big eating family.
It just kept on going.
They're Italians, and they, like...
Yeah, but so you're not good. Either way, back to the digestive stuff, and then we'll go to there. Can you imagine how that would, when a lot of people are like, I just feel terrible. Well, yeah, you're going to feel terrible. You're literally not digesting the food. Your mouth is dry. The saliva is not even producing. Your gut is an indication of the same response. If your mouth isn't watering, guess what your gut isn't doing? It's not watering either. Which means nothing's digesting, and peristalsis stops. And what they found in stress is it stops for hours, because the adrenals then secrete cortisol and adrenaline, and those make a longer impact. So it's not just central nervous system that's doing it, it's the actual feedback from the organs pushing these hormones out are making it last for hours of non-digestion, non-peristalsis.
That makes sense. I always used to think, like, I just eat so much that my stomach's full, but you know how, like, you can, like, feel the food, like, almost in your throat, like, you're, like you just, you so just want, like, if I didn't care about throwing up, I just would, like, so want to just throw up, because it's, like, every time you, I don't know, like, the food comes back up, it is.
Yes, it's not digested.
Right.
You have acid reflux, but there's not much acid anyway. So something to think about too is not just how you perceive your environment and your life and how life is going, the sensitivity to stress, which is ultimately affected by your sense of capacity. So you're going through life feeling, I can't handle this, going into denial, right? Because that's how your response is. But on top of that, you're constantly fearful of food because you have this issue with thinness and your fear of fatness. So while you're eating, it's not just the environment that you're stressed out about, your kids, your life, your struggles in the home with your children and getting them motivated and your sense of like that. Now you're dealing with the stress of, I shouldn't be eating that, but I really need to eat something to, deny my reality, to hide from reality. And then you're creating all this physical sensitivity because of your emotional diabetes. Okay. That's what they termed it, emotional diabetes.
Yeah.
And the fact that you're not even digesting this food. So your food issues are magnified physically. And then that feeds into this idea that, that food is so bad it made me sick, not thinking that maybe the fear of food is making you sick and your sense of inability to handle your life is not going well.
Yeah, it's like double whammy.
Yeah. And it just feeds back into the whole diet concept, which is actually a major source of the problem. All right?
Yeah.
Anyways, you're doing a lot better now, which is great. Even though if you're still overeating and you're still sensitive, you have to really open it up below that and say, what's going on? Obviously, the fact that your 8-year-old dog dying is extremely traumatic. You didn't have warning. Your son had to watch it. That's traumatic. You could see how that would create an immediate issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, if an exam in a 2-year medical student can cause diabetes, you think maybe your dog dying abruptly can cause it?
Oh, yeah.
Or support
type. I probably thought I dealt with it better than I had.
Yeah, well, we're going into it, and we had talked, which is awesome. Yeah. And then we're going to go to Disneyland and shove food down our face, and then go to an Italian's dinner.
I know. She literally ordered like $300 worth of Cheesecake Factory food. It's like all over the entire table. I'm like, oh my god. Oh my goodness, this is so insane.
So did you feel bad at all?
No, I didn't.
That's huge.
I didn't feel guilty. I just felt like
physically
right, what was I thinking? Why did I do that? I don't.
Well, did you feel obligated? Was it obligatory eating?
No, I think it was more like, it's right in front of me, and See, I think a lot of, I know there's issues below a lot of it, but I think a lot of times too, I go back into my old bad habits. Like a lot of it's habit,
Okay. Which
I
could
tend to just retrain my ways,
Yeah, well, you have to be aware. Like, for example, you have to, in the moment this food is here, you have to be aware of, do I want to feel sick? This is very similar to being aware of getting drunk while you drink.
Right.
You have to be aware, otherwise you're going to regret it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in those moments where the opportunity is absolutely there, how do you create a boundary that doesn't feel depriving? Right?
Yeah, I think that, right, I've never been too great at that, and I'm not really great at that with drinking either. I don't drink that much. When I do, I drink a lot. It's that all or, that all
well, that's a sign you're looking to get drunk.
Right.
So you're basically saying, I don't want to get drunk, or I want to get drunk. So is it really all or nothing?
Well, no, I guess not.
Okay, so let's not mislabel it and think that that's true, because it really comes down to when you want to get drunk versus when you don't.
Right.
And so when we look at the food thing, it's a matter of, I don't want to feel deprived. Are you afraid to feel deprived? I don't want to have to think about it.
Yeah.
I don't want to. So that tells me that you are dieting in a way. I don't know. You'd have to go into that, because it really comes down to, are you afraid of gaining weight? Are you telling yourself, I'm not saying this is true. I just want you to go through this in your mind. This is what you have to do. Is really in the process of recovery, because you're still processing this. Once someone's recovered, this is so easy. But if you're in the process of recovery, telling yourself the truth about what's going on is actually what's going to end it very quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So go into the truth. Were you afraid to feel deprived? At what point did you know that you were starting to feel toxic and sick, but yet keep on going just out of the obligation, or thinking in your mind, you know what, just allow yourself to have this freedom because it's going to be gone tomorrow. You won't have this available. That's the all nothing kind of pendulum swing around dieting, which is eat more now because you're going to eat less tomorrow, and that makes it all good.
No, I definitely didn't have that.
Awesome. That's awesome.
It was more I think just not listening to my body and just going overboard, kind of
Were you aware as you were going overboard?
I think I tend to just don't slow down enough that I eat too fast.
I see.
Like when we were at dinner at Disneyland,
And then it hit you.
I think I just ate too fast, and then I was like, oh my
Oh,
gosh.
are you getting too hungry? Because sometimes that happens when you're too hungry. You wait, you're starving, you're low blood sugar. You get that urgency to eat is there because that's the sense that's coming from the brain is now.
Yeah, and I'm still not really great at, like, I'd be better if I had a smaller portion, but when it comes, like, with a bigger portion, I still need.
Oh, that means you're not listening to your body.
Right, I still need to definitely work on that, listening to my body, because.
Okay, so that's just part of this is part of practice. It sounds like if you're not having any of this mental drama, the mental that used to go on, right? If you're not having that anymore, you really have to ask yourself how much you like being sick.
Right, exactly. And I felt
because it is toxic
in the past, and I always say, okay, I'm not gonna, I don't like to feel this way. It's like getting drunk. Like, how many times have you gone past that and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna do this again?
Yeah, well, the problem is you can say that all you want. What does it take to not get drunk? Well, you have to be conscious while you're drinking. You have to listen to your body, even if it's like, woohoo, we're having so much fun. I should have 3 more shots. You have to go, okay, I'm aware in this moment that this is the moment I have to be aware of. And you have to be aware. You just have to give it, do I want to be sick? How much do I want to be sick? You need to remember how shitty it feels when you're toxic because you're just not listening. How shitty is it really? To me, I hate it. It sucks. I try to avoid it. So I really, really love food like everybody else does, right? I appreciate the artistry of food. I appreciate, you can see behind me in this buffet, I actually love to set the table. I love the whole thing. I love, oh my God, my Pinterest, there's a big thing of table settings. Just the whole experience of food and sharing and the love that is so human about it. When my husband and I celebrate, we like to save our money and get really nice fine dining. I love the whole flipping thing. And what makes it even better is when I enjoy it and I can experience it and taste it and I physically don't feel like shit. That's actually like it's like, and I can enjoy this wine and I'm not sloppy.
Yeah.
My cheeks are feeling a little, warm. I might be feeling a little bit from the wine, but you know what? I love not being wasted. I love that I could have some of that dessert and I'm not leaving here feeling sick to my stomach, rolling out of here, burping and uncomfortable and having to undo. That part to me, it just takes away from the experience. So how can you manage all that you have available to you and get the win-win?
Yeah.
It may just need to be that you need to experience that. Maybe you haven't experienced that balance. And so you can have the comparison to say, we went out to dinner, we were with friends, it was loving. You can appreciate your Italian friend who's like abundance, plenty, love, connection, the symbolism of all of that. And that is such a cool experience. That is such a human survival, like securing feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you experience that and be present with that and enjoy the food without hurting yourself in the process?
Yeah.
This is like going wine tasting. Have you ever been wine tasting? How do you wine taste without getting just wasted?
Yeah, I don't like wine.
Okay, well, the winos out there, it's like, it takes practice. You have to know when to spit it out. You have to know when, even though it's so good, spit it out. Because there's a benefit of the enjoyment and then the actual not having the downside, which is toxicity. So I'm going to challenge you to go to somewhere expensive, because that's another test. I spent so much money on this. Yes. Test it. Add a little alcohol. Put yourself in chaos and focus on when to stop. So you get the benefit, but you have the boundary to where you're not willing to hurt your body. You know, how would you feed your child in that environment?
Yeah.
You know, you would be a little more cautious, more caring, more attentive. That's a good word. You need to be attentive. Mm-hmm. You benefit if you're attentive.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's gonna take more practice, and like you said, like it's easy when you're taking a hormone that makes you not hungry, you know, or that just like it does it for you. You know, you don't have to think.
You're just not hungry. Yeah. Well, when you are hungry, it's exciting. It should feel exciting. Like, oh my God, I get to enjoy food. I get to have choices. I get to the palate. Here's the other part. Again, they found with the digestive studies with dogs and cats and rabbits and humans, you know, is where they really studied this, is when you're excited, your mouth waters. Just being excited to eat improves digestion.
Mm-hmm. Like Pavlov.
Well, Pavlov is one of the scientists that I'm reading. I'm reading his work. He did way more than that. He studied so much. He's most well known for the ringing of the bell and the mouth watering, which, what does that tell you about digestion? When you're excited to eat, it works. When you're not, it doesn't. It doesn't. Food in the stomach does not what stimulates gastric release. It's the brain that does it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think, you know, I just need to just step back and like, I think I was having a little anxiety, like towards, oh my gosh, you know, like, okay, am I hungry? Am I not hungry? And okay, I am hungry, but like, oh my gosh, now there's all these choices. Like, what do I want all of them, but then what do I have? And, you know, it's just like all these. I'm not used to ever having choices, or you know,
what I just heard and what you just said is I'm afraid to feel deprived. That's what I heard. Yeah, I know that's not what you said. But the problem is that you are hungry, you're excited, but you want it all. Yeah, so what if your hunger only allows for some? For me, I don't get it all. There's a sense of fear of deprivation in that.
Or it's like, I just couldn't, like, how did you decide what, you know, I try to think, like, what am I wanting? And then I guess it's hard for me.
Well, you have to know you can always go back. You can always get more. This isn't the end of this isn't the end of your life. It doesn't have to all be eaten all right now.
Right.
Okay, that comes from someone who's... Well, it's a moment where you question your impulse to eat it all right now. You have to stop and question that shit. And you're not. You're still being ridden by it. And no wonder you're not listening, because you don't want to. You literally don't want to listen, because if you listen to your body, you're not going to get it all. And I want it all. So there's an entitlement underneath that.
Yeah.
Why are you so entitled? Go further down. If you tell yourself the truth, you're going to have to stop what you're doing. So there's part of this process is I don't want to have to tell the truth, because then I'll have to have control over myself. Right? Yeah. I'll have to be an adult and I don't want to grow up.
I don't want the responsibility. I don't want to be an adult.
I don't want to be told no.
You're right. I still...
So that's just a sign you're pissed off about the years of being deprived that you did to yourself.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So think about, what is it going to be like? And this is something I had to think for myself too, is what will life be like? Because I really enjoyed binging. It was fun. And again, it's not the binge that's fun. It's the freedom from having to care, worry, think, be responsible in the moment, because you're so vigilant in your religiosity with dieting that it's so liberating to let it go. And that's why binging is so euphoric. It's you're feeling so liberated in the moment to say, fuck you, I don't give a shit that I'm not supposed to eat that. I'm gonna eat it. In fact, I'm gonna eat everything I'm not supposed to eat just to feel free. So it's not the food, it's the actual freedom and the liberation from having to be a responsible person. Right? That's the all or nothing, because you're so in your religious righteousness that you're inhumane when you're dieting. It's inhumane. There's no balance in the middle, because you can't have that food. That's for slobby people, you know. The stigma of eating for people who are diet religious zealots, you know. So part of that feeling that you had and the entitlement to it is the fact that you don't want to have any boundaries.
Yeah, you're right, and it's kind of with, you know, it goes further in my life too. I mean, like I know, I guess, I've just always been kind of childish, I guess, in my thinking. You know,
well, that's what happens when you you are emotionally immature, but you're also being enabled. So that's part of the problem too, is the enabling effect of dieting, because you're given the diet is the rescuer. It says, we'll fix what you just ruined. You know, and so you can use that to negotiate to get your freedom. It's like the rat in Charlotte's Web at the fair. Smorgasbord, smorgasbord. You know that scene? Where he's at the fair and he's just like making love to the banana peel and he's having so much fun.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have that if you didn't have a diet to fix it for you, to make it all better. And so that dieting enables this immaturity around taking responsibility in those environments. So, and the other thing too is it's also enabling emotional immaturity in how you cope with your reality and stress in reality. Because it makes food, it's like if I have a stress in my life, there's something excited to look forward to, because in those stressful environments, you have an excuse to eat. Again, this isn't conscious. It sounds horrible when I'm speaking about it, doesn't it? It's like, Jesus, so childish.
No, that I would do that all the time. I mean, I think I would do it conscious and unconsciously.
Well, wouldn't that make sense if you're held captive by some religiously zealot type of a restriction with food? Why you'd be super excited there's a stress in your life? Because I now have an excuse to eat and fulfill the first hierarchy of my psychological needs. I'll deal with the damages later because I don't want to deal with life or the damages in the moment. So you black reality out as you go into this food smorgasbord, you know. And the moment it's like, well, you're not hungry. That's what it ends up sounding like. You're not supposed to be eating. You're a piece of shit. You're not hungry. And that's like making the hunger scale your new captor. And that's not the goal, right?
Right. I think, it seems to have, like, gotten worse as I've gotten older. I think maybe it's because, like, life...
So you're protesting how sick and tired you are of dieting. That's what that is. It's like a protest. Fuck you. I'm going to eat what the hell I want.
And life gets harder as you get older, and
well, bigger issues or more realistic issues. You're more prone to the death of a child. Children not, you have children. You just did that to yourself, Having children does that.
Yeah, and I think, I just need to get better at learning how to deal with things by not
hiding,
not revolved around food.
Escaping, repressing, denying. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is this: when you are you are using food as a rescuer, chances are you have a restriction in your back pocket.
Right.
Because there's got to be balance between the damages that is doing. It's kind of like someone who is, a cheater, cheating on their spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they got to have an apology in their back pocket. They got to have an excuse in their back pocket. They got to have a way to keep the marriage together if they get caught. They're not only are they constantly trying to seek an outlet, they're seeking in their mind a reason why it's okay.
Yeah, that's true.
So you're doing the same thing. And your way of cheating is to get your food. But what are you cheating on? What are you cheating on with food?
Myself.
No. Wrong answer.
What am I cheating on with food? I'm cheating on the diet?
Yes. That's the brainwashing. You think it's yourself, but it's not you you're cheating on. You're cheating on your thin supremacy and / the diet religion that supports it.
Yeah.
If you didn't believe in thin supremacy or dieting, would you really need to cheat? Have an excuse. Would you need an excuse?
No, I mean...
So what happens then? What happens? Just follow me. What happens then if you don't need an excuse? What happens to the excitement?
Oh, right. It's not exciting.
At all. It loses its sparkle. It's like, oh, food really isn't that big deal. It kind of sucked when I recovered from the binging aspect. That part was like, oh, it was kind of a letdown because I really got so much out of like, fuck the dieting,
Yeah, see, I haven't really felt like I've like that. Like I haven't really felt like I've been cheating because I really don't believe the freaking industry anymore. And
I know. Well, so now we're dealing with you might have underlying beliefs around health. So that's a lot of times what kind of bubbles up after the body image aspect, the thin supremacy has been surrendered, which is a big deal. In fact, that's massive. What can come up is the beliefs around health and what that is. Can you see how that would be so much quite pervasive and unseen in the background?
Yeah.
Especially since you work, this goes back to remember, like, I'm a nurse. I should know better. You remember that?
Yeah, but
my response to that was like,
that's kind of hogwash because nurses and,
I know. However, at some point, you thought you were very healthy or thought you knew what health was. And there might be some leftover ties to that. I could be wrong. I'm just here to help you process and say, hey, look at this angle. It could be that. You might still be thinking I shouldn't be eating that. It's unhealthy. Or, oh my God, I'm doing too much. Even just too much food being unhealthy, which of course it causes toxic reactions. I get that. You drink too much water and you're toxic.
Right.
So
I've never really been a health freak kind of person, really. Like, I think with me, it's more like dealing with life. Like, I'm not. I need
Got
to.
It. You need to address the underlying insecurity that you have.
Like just getting overwhelmed and feeling like the whole feeling like I can't handle, like feeling can I handle this puppy? You know? Okay, yes, I can. I've done it before.
You have to.
I can.
Even if you can't. Let's just go into you can't. You can't.
Right, we can't give it back. We can't. Like, everyone's already loves this dog. I mean, my kids.
So you just do the best you can. So let's not question your fear. Let's actually accept your fear. You can't handle this. You're sucking at it. Just go there. Don't negotiate. Don't be like, I can't. No, you can't. Go with your fear. What if you can't? What if that's true? Are you going to be okay with that? Is there something wrong, really, with it?
No. I mean, it's funny because I physically said that to my son this morning. Like, no one's helping me. I hope I can I really hope I can, or what do I say? I hope I can handle this puppy, or I don't know if I can handle this puppy. And my son's like, well,
you are still holding yourself. Okay, so you're still holding yourself to above and beyond your capacity. You still are holding yourself to ideals. Doesn't have to be thin supremacy anymore. It can be my house needs to be the right cleanliness. My ideal around how to fold the laundry. You're still holding. I'm hearing that I want you to see the connection to your overall identity with thinking I have to be good enough.
Yeah.
What that does. What does the idea, because it's an idea of I have to be good enough. Because what is good enough? Who defines what good enough is? What is a good enough dog owner? Who defines that? Where are you getting the idea of what's good enough when it comes to raising a dog? What is good enough?
I guess if they turn out, I'm like, okay, I got to do this one right.
What is that? So you're not questioning that. What is that? What is this one right? We'll do it right. What do you mean? So you're not questioning that. I am. I want you to start questioning that. What is the right way to do this? Isn't that kind of a moving target? Because it depends on the household, depends on the dynamics of your home, depends on the, you have land. What if you lived in an apartment? What's right for someone who has a dog in an apartment might be different with someone who's on a farm. Who defines all this stuff? How do you know? Is there a book?
See? Yeah, I guess I don't know. I guess I was just like, okay, well, if your dog's well behaved, then you've done a good job.
Who knows? Because what is well behaved, and who defines what well behaved is? Who defines that? I let my dog on my freaking couch. I love it. I love to snuggle with him. He loves to snuggle with me. He wants to be by my face. Is that well behaved?
Yeah, I would do that.
It's kind of relative, right? Some people look at me and think I'm a terrible human being because I'm allowing the dog on my couch.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so what you're not questioning is this vanilla. I don't know if vanilla is the right word. No, it is vanilla, because to you, when I say vanilla, basic, you're not questioning basic to you, which is elevated. Basic is above where you're at, and you're constantly trying to achieve vanilla. And that's why you're not questioning it.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time. I'm struggling right now.
Just be like, okay, so lower, like.
Yes, it needs to be actually basic to what's right for you and your family and what you're capable of in this moment. Do you really need to be a dog trainer to be okay?
No, and I mean, I was going to take him to class, and
sure,
so then you can.
Sure, but relax. The problem, well, it's so easy to say, come on, relax. Over here.
Okay, just think I'm just doing the best I can with
what's right for your family.
Yeah,
yes, and no one knows that. No one knows it. No one but you.
Yeah.
And you don't even know it. So you just have to do and be okay with it. And if there's issues, then you resolve them as they arise. If you're having a dog that's, you adapt. You're adaptable. So, the problem here is that you feel insecure and inadequate in everything. And that comes from an overall belief or identity with your own capacity. Where does that come from? Well, it comes from you holding yourself to this idea of what is better. There's better. You have to be better. I think maybe that is more accurate to what you're struggling with, is your identity as the need to be better than whatever it is. It doesn't even matter what you're doing. There's always something better. I have to be better. I'm better. And what that does is it makes your current reality not good enough. And then can you see why you would feel inadequate or insecure or I can't handle this?
Yeah.
Well, because you can't handle better. But you're holding yourself to something better. Why can't you just be good? Why can't you just be yourself? Whatever that is. Why can't you just be good enough? So you're still suffering. It's just, you're not suffering so intensely with body image, but it still sounds like a degree of suffering in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't consciously do that.
I know you're not.
Because I didn't, I mean, I definitely, I think that is why I sometimes never feel 100% secure of, like, when I make decisions, like, it's like, okay, say we get this dog and then he's not, or I have some vision of what he should be doing, and, I just need to be patient, and I'm maybe not, and then I'm like, my gosh, did we make the wrong decision? Should we gotten a different dog? Like, is he not smart enough?
Oh my God! But you're holding this dog to the vision, not thinking that your vision sucked. Once again,
right.
like you're constantly holding yourself and everybody else to something better than it is. And how do you think that impacts not just you, but everybody around you?
Yeah.
Everybody feels inadequate. Everybody feels not good enough. Something has to be better. Something has to be better. And that's a sign of your intrinsic survival. You're not doing well. Now, that's a grade. It's not all or nothing. It just sounds like in general, and I know you've been in this state for a long time, since you were a kid. It's not good enough. It has to be better than this. Fantasizing, right? I want that.
Yeah, and so it's definitely a lot. I feel like I've gotten a lot better.
Yes, I can tell you sound different. You are better. But you are better.
Little creeps come in, and it's like, and so I just have to say, no, like this is the perfect dog. Like there may be 50 better dogs out there, but
this is the one for me, and I will adapt, and and it's yes.
Yeah.
And so you have to remove the fantasy, because what is really occurring is reality. Should reality be better than it is?
Right, and I think that's where I would get myself overwhelmed, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, there's, it's overwhelming when you may think, like, okay, I have to have the perfect dog, and I have the perfect dog, and oh my gosh, nobody's still out there. You feel like you're like making yourself insane.
Yeah, well, are you coping? Is that what the perfect dog is about? You might be coping with your grief, which is why you need the perfect dog, because you felt that you had the perfect dog in Sydney. And you might be trying to replicate that. And you're going to have to, the only way to replicate that is for you to love this dog as it is. Now it's perfect. And you can't compare the two.
Yeah. I still miss her.
Yeah. See, I think you need to address that. You really need to address the loss that you're experiencing, and you may be trying to cope with this puppy, to not feel the grief, to not feel so terrible. You need to let yourself feel terrible. What would happen if you actually felt terrible? I know you do feel terrible, and you have felt terrible, but what if you just sit in it and don't do anything about it? Don't try to fix it.
I didn't, I don't think that I got him to replace her.
Yeah, but you might have got him to avoid the loss. There's nothing wrong with admitting that if that is the case. In fact, if you don't admit it and that's the case, there's something wrong here.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be...
I definitely thought it would help, and...
Yeah, but don't allow it to distract you from actually addressing how traumatic the loss of that dog has been for you.
Yeah, and
don't diminish it in any way. Don't diminish it.
Right. I know I still miss her. I know that, she wasn't the perfect dog, that's for sure. My gosh, she
but she loved you perfectly, and you loved her perfectly, and that's the hardest part, is when you feel a loss of that connection and bond. And I don't know. I just think you might want to go back underneath that. When you're saying to me, is this the right dog? It sounds to me like you're coping. You know? Which means you haven't quite fully gone into the grief, like full grieving. It doesn't mean you haven't grieved or felt like shit. That's what I'm trying to explain, I guess, is that it sounds like you're trying to escape that grief. You need to put some closure to that. I think what will happen when you put full closure to that is this new bond will not have needs or compensations or pressure. Then it will be easy. You won't be second guessing this at all.
Yeah.
Because you love dogs. Your kids love dogs. That's no question there. You love this breed. That's not a question there, right? It's just a matter of what you expected out of this relationship with this dog. And if you have in any way connected the grief of Sydney to it, that's why there might be pressure or a lack of lenience or adaptation. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just go into that truth for yourself. If in any way you have got this dog to cope with your grief, you need to address the grief so that you don't project it into this next relationship or hide from it. You know, to me, being that I witnessed how you responded to the thin supremacy work that we've done, I would not be surprised if you said, I can't take this. I need to get another dog. That sounds like about right to me. I'm not judging that. I can't take it. The silence is too deadening. Not having her around hurts. I need, because you do when you lose a pack animal like that, a part of your tribe, and you're the caretaker for them, you do feel the loss of them. You feel it. It's like a hole. When we had to put Gianna down, it was like, I couldn't use her leash. I couldn't use her with Potato. I had to have it in one, it was just like, oh, her light, her headlamp. Because we would go out, or we had a little light on her because we were leaving at like 6 a.m. to take him out. It was dark, super dark out in the foothills. And we put a light on her. It was like, I wanted to put it on her the next morning. And it was just like loss, right? The little things you don't realize are actually an expression of love. Like putting that stupid little light on her collar was like love, and so it can feel like terrible if you haven't processed it as love, right? It just feels like loss, and once I fully processed it and grieved it, and we, expressed the love, it was like, oh, I miss loving her. Putting that little light was like love. And it changes how you experience the grief. It's beautiful. It becomes light instead of dark. Right? And I just have a sense that you're avoiding all that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely need to.
How traumatic was her death for you? Like, really, really admit it.
No, it was like the most traumatic thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Okay, so just let that sink in. Let that sink in.
Or like the worst thing that's ever happened. Nothing bad has ever happened to me, really.
Okay, so just let that sink in. Let it sink in.
Yeah.
I would actually argue your eating disorder is terrible, and it was the worst thing that you've ever lived through, and the fact that you lived through it is amazing. The death of a dog is nothing compared to actually living with an eating disorder, okay? People commit suicide over eating disorders. So with that said, of course this is hard. You need to process it, and I have a sense that you have done it partially. You have not fully allowed the loss of her. You're hiding it.
Yeah, and I think part of it's like that closure thing. Like I guess I was like, I don't know how to do closure. It's hard.
You're hiding it. You're hiding it. You're hiding.
Well, I think because it was it was like I didn't understand it. Like
it sucks. You have to sit in it to understand it. You have to allow it to exist to understand it. So when you see that, I'm like, well, no, duh.
Well, but like, because I didn't know what happened. Like, if I knew she had cancer, like if I knew what.
None of that matters.
What happened?
No, that doesn't change anything. That's a fantasy. You're saying if it was different, it would. No, this is how it is when they die. They died. She died. She died. She could have been poisoned. Okay? Who the fuck knows? She could have eaten something poisonous outside. Who knows? Whatever it is, the grief is the same.
Yeah.
You have to sit in it. That's why you have to sit in it, and you have to allow it to get, it gets bigger. Yeah. It gets bigger. It feels like it's going to overtake you. You become, here was my experience. Okay. The next day after we put Jana down, which happened in one day, took her in, within hours, we put her down.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Terrible. Terrible to know you're going to put her down. Terrible to know she's about to die and she doesn't know. Terrible. The whole thing's terrible. Okay. Gosh. It's all terrible. And then to witness it, it just sucks. It sucks. Okay. So let's just start with that. The whole thing sucks. Yeah. But you know this when you get a pet. You don't get a dog. No. You don't get a pet completely in denial about the fact that it's going to hurt. And there's potential. Your dog could get hit by a car. It could get, it's all there. It's all right in the front because it's going to happen within a decade and a half or two. It's right here.
I think that's some of I think it's more I have worry, because that happened to Sydney. Now I'm oh my God, we gotta pull out the gardenias, we gotta pull out their poisonous, I'm kind of have fear of.
Okay, so your fear is that you can't handle it, which means you still have not handled her death. You have not handled Sydney's death yet.
Yeah.
And your grief and the trauma over it all was traumatic for you. It was traumatic.
Yeah, I guess. And I know nothing, it wouldn't change anything. I kind of, I wish I could have been there when she died. I wish, I could.
Yes, you could say goodbye.
Yeah.
Yep. All that. Yep. To let her know how much you love her. But the thing is, why can't you do it now? For whatever reason, it was her time. Why can't you express it now? What's wrong? Your remorse is that you think you have to do it while they're alive, and that's understandable, but you can express it. I feel like I felt more connected to Jana after she passed away. I feel like I've had more expression of love with her after she died, especially the next day. It was hit me like a Mack truck. I was in bed, and I couldn't even do much. And I sobbed, and good thing the kids were gone. They would have been nervous because it was retching. I was retching in love for that dog, and actually witnessing the fact I felt like she was there just telling me, and there was a sense of intense love I experienced that day. But I have to tell you, I don't think I would have experienced that if I was in denial, if I was trying to push it away, if I was trying to avoid it, if I was feeling sorry for myself. I wouldn't have witnessed it. It wouldn't have been, I'll never forget that. Never. It wouldn't have been as healing, too, in the presence of it. It was like miraculous and instantaneous healing of my grief by just allowing that intense love to grow and grow and grow to the point where I had intense pain. It was like physical pain. So weird.
Oh, no, I know.
But it wasn't sad pain. It wasn't grief pain. It wasn't I'm sorry pain. It was like she loved me that much, and I was aware of it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You're not allowing that. You're like avoiding it. You're hiding it. You're hiding. There's hiding going on. I can just sense it. You're hiding from that. What's going to happen if you just let it happen? What's your fear? What's your fear tell you if you just sit in that? Like face it head on with your eyes open.
I mean, I think I can do that. I think I thought I did that.
You're just avoiding it. You're afraid of it. You're doing things to distract yourself. I know you are. I swear to God, you are.
No, I know. I need to just, I guess, just break down again. Like, I thought, the day after, it was horrible. And
mm-hmm.
I thought that it was like, okay, it's done. But
I don't. Have you really processed the lack? So right now you have all this new chaos. So you're really not processing the lack, the bits of love that you gave her that are gone.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what's, bringing up more, like, it's continuing on, because I guess I realize that this puppy's can't replace her,
No, well, of course not. And I don't think you would have consciously chosen, I'm going to get a puppy to replace her. That wasn't a conscious thing. No. To me, it is, I need something to fulfill this. It's going to fill it. Fill up this void. There's a big void. Let's fill it up. And it would be a feeling thing. It wouldn't be a cognitive thing that you did.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And a lot of it was like my other dog. She seemed really down and sad.
Yes, and that's okay. They go through their own process, and eventually she would have noticed that she changed. She would have changed. She would have started, there's a phase of that, and then she might have become really loving, really close to you. She might have come a lot closer to you. You just didn't wait.
Yeah.
This type of rescuing, if you want to call it that, it actually makes you very weak, and it's like enabling, and you don't really get a sense of ability. There's no sense of ability underneath it, because you never really went through the process. You just kind of like perpetuated a distraction, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I think I can. I need to go up there. I haven't been up to where he buried her.
Oh, honey. Oh, yeah. You need to go into it. You need to actually go into that space and just go limp to it. If I were to give you any advice, don't distract yourself from 1 ounce, for 1 second, for one thing. Because if you want to think of it this way, that's like diminishing your relationship with that dog. Like, I don't want to look at this. Why wouldn't you want to look at it? That's like saying it's not, I mean, it's in a way, it's like saying, I know in your mind it's because you loved her so much and you can't handle it. But what you're saying is that I don't want to experience and express that because it hurts. Express it. Be in it. It's ugly. I'm not going to lie. It's ugly. Because it's so beyond, I think, the physical aspect of our humanness. It's very spiritual.
Yeah, I will. Like that plaque sitting on the kitchen counter. I haven't put it on there yet. gone up there. I need to go up and...
You're hiding. Would you say when I say you're hiding, every time it's like, oh my God, she's so hiding from this. Like behind a tree. Oh, don't look at it. Don't look at it. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. How important do you think this is?
Huh?
How important do you think this is in your overall maturity, your emotional maturity here? How important is this for you to...
Oh, hugely important.
Yeah, because you've never really done this before, except for when you faced being fat, which was much easier than you probably thought it was going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what it is. Like, I don't know if I feel like I let her down or something, or like I couldn't save her. Or I don't know.
Well, there's your not good enough coming out.
I mean, I had there's nothing I could have done. Nothing.
Yeah, maybe this had nothing to do with you. Maybe it's not about you.
Yeah. No, I guess that's what I have just always done in my life. I needed I needed an explanation for everything, and I can never just I just need to accept it. Like, there's things just happen sometimes.
Yeah, this is the way life is. This is life. This is reality. It's why does God really need to come to you and make sure you understand it so you can be okay with it?
No.
Why can't you just be okay with it and just acknowledge all that is occurring is above and beyond my awareness. So I'll just accept it as it is. And if it means that a relationship that was so bonded and loving and easy goes away, I will tie it in a bow and be so grateful for it.
Yeah, I mean it.
Put a bow around it. I mean, you see what I mean by gratitude? By avoiding this, what are you essentially saying? This wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
It was wrong. Wrong.
And she was
so right.
Good enough.
So by avoiding this, you're essentially saying wrong. Bah.
Yeah. I think I need to go up there and put that.
You need to maybe take a cot and lay down and freaking cry. And do it in a way that's expressing how much you loved her and allow yourself to feel and experience her love coming towards you, because it's going to happen. And that's really, if you open yourself up beyond your own self-centeredness in this, it's not about you, is it?
No. Yeah.
Who is this about?
Sydney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you not express that love? Can you do it?
Yeah.
So that's what this is. This is really a matter of, can you express how much you loved her?
Yeah.
And what'll happen when you express that? What is it going to feel like?
Like relief.
Completion. Like it is complete.
Like a weight lifted off your shoulders.
Yeah, it feels like I said, completion. It's like her role in your life and the contract you and her had at this time with each other is complete. It has been served.
Yeah.
Then what? Then what happens? How are you going to relate to this new dog? You feel the difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can move on and
Yeah, just be in this moment. Be in it. Not constantly going before it. It needs to be better. It needs to be better. That's like going ahead and controlling everything. Why can't you just exist with what it is? Exist with what your relationship was with Sydney, and I want you to put closure to it, and you really need to not be distracted in that space. You need to go out there and you need to express as much of that love for her as possible, and you'll recognize that she loved you 10 times as much.
Oh, yeah.
They're amazing. And these dogs are the most loving in the most unconditional way. As teachers, like, I want to love like that. I want to express my inner canine.
Yeah.
And to be so at peace and so at closure with that life, for whatever reason. Do you really need to know why it ended? Do you really need to be God in this moment around it?
No.
You just accept it. She did her job. Her job was done.
Yeah, and then it's not fair to the puppy that
you're coping with it. Correct.
He's his own self.
Yeah, you got it. So you get that done today. You can do it. You can